didn't know when to start screaming. Giant coverage for you guys today. 12 hours straight. I believe we're triple streaming YouTube, Facebook, Twitter.
I gotta go in an hour. I was thinking that it would be wrapped up.
Maybe we can call Pennsylvania.
So when we start one of these things, we've got a lot of things to go over. We've got the excitement of the day. We've got my anecdotal evidence that's coming. Okay, very important in Los Angeles because as Los Angeles goes, so goes libs, but nothing else. Anyways, then of course we'll get into our usual California voting frustrations, and we'll dip a little bit into the Electoral College and explain that because as some of you might think, oh, that's elementary, my dear Watson. But my dear Uger, but we actually have a very large international audience, and for them it is perplexing. And yes, today in the first hour we have logistics, so that's a ton of fun.
Okay. When are you going to change?
I might actually change throughout the day.
I know. I brought an extra outfit too.
I also brought extra outfits.
I'm the only one who didn't bring an extra outfit.
Well, if we look like you, we wouldn't worry about bringing an extra outfit.
All right, Ben Mankiewicz, Jake Uger, John Irola, Anna Kasparian. I will be yelling throughout the day. The first thing is everybody share. Okay, sharing is caring. It's a share-a-thon. What I mean by that is we need the largest audience on the web today, okay? I need you to show us how strong we are, okay? So we're going to keep on sharing throughout the day with your family and friends because thank you for being here. But if you're on Twitter, obviously retweet. If you're on Facebook, share, okay? If you're on YouTube, you can embed the code. You can send an email or just there's a share button too where you send it to Facebook, Twitter, etc. So keep on doing that so that everybody's watching here. I got a little mad this morning because I was reading about how other people will be covering the election, and they were bragging about things like CNN has a second stream, but in that stream, Wolf Blitzer makes it really gets personal and tells you why he doesn't go on elevators on election day.
Oh, hey.
I'm like, wow, that is good. I didn't know they were going to get crazy like that at CNN. And then different people are like, oh, we've got musicians. The other one's like, we got clowns.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious why.
Don't they always have clowns, though?
Yeah. Okay, he's superstitious and thinks he's going to get stuck in an elevator and miss all the coverage. Okay. Okay, anyway. Here, I just ruined all of CNN's coverage for you online.
So here's the best thing we have. For the third straight year.
Third straight election.
Third straight election. The big board. Now, this is left over.
Oh, my God. I think Obama's going to win.
He is. Now, so what we're going to do here is we raise it up there. See, at the bottom, I'll be putting all of the states. We'll have the solid blues, and then the solid reds. And then we'll have a bigger mix this year so we can have more drama, even if we kind of know.
Yeah, well, that's a question. That's a question we're going to tackle right away.
And then as they come in, we'll put them up here and we'll call it. And I had to wrap this in cellophane because it's so badly chipped, it literally will bleed all over the table. But our
budget is impressive.
We're ready to go now. It's
blank.
During my break in the action, I'll write in.
We should mount that afterward.
It can stay here.
You know what? Make sure that's preserved. That should go to the museum. I'm not even kidding. I'm not even kidding.
It might. You never know.
Okay.
Should we start off by talking about our experience this morning at the polls if we voted this morning?
Yeah. Let's do that.
I think that's important.
Okay, and then right after that, we're going to tell you who's going to win. Okay.
So this is the first time that I experienced an insanely long line.
Me too!
At the polling place because, first of all, I wanted to make sure I got to work on time. So I showed up 30 minutes before the polls opened just to make sure that
That's such a Casper move.
5:30?
It was the best decision I made,
so did the Mankiewiczes. We were there at 7:30.
7:30?
Wow, that is not a Mankiewicz move.
We were at 8:30.
Yeah. Okay.
So the polls opened at 7 a.m. Where I'm at, and so I got there at 6:30, and there was already an insanely long line. Alonzo and I actually live in the same area, so he told
Duraldi from What the Flick.
Yeah, from What the Flick. And so as we were waiting in line, all of a sudden I see him and his partner walking out, and I was like, Alonzo. He had gotten there at like 6 in the morning.
Yeah, Dave White, Alonzo's husband, he insisted, no, it's going to be a thing. And Alonso was like, no, it won't. And he said this morning, he tweeted, okay.
It's a thing.
Dave wins. It's a thing.
It was a thing.
Yeah.
It was a thing. I want to talk about that in a second, but Alonso said something really nice to me yesterday. He said that he watched Why I'm Going to Vote for Hillary Clinton, and that it made a difference for him.
Yeah, I think it made a difference for a lot of people. And it was, honestly, I don't know if it was a courageous thing to do because there are so many people that disagree, a lot of Bernie Sanders supporters that watch this show that disagree. But you got to be honest. And I think that you made a lot of good reasons or had a lot of good reasons for voting for her.
He still voted for Trump, he told me this morning.
So I did get in there, though, and I did pause a little bit. But I'll get to my story in a second. But look, the reason why it was a little risky, for whatever, right? We're going to do what we're going to do. We always tell you the truth. So it was never a question in that regard. Because they're going to hold it against me for the rest of my life. Yeah. They're going to say I was...
Everything she does that
That's
they
right.
hate and that you hate.
Right.
Right.
And they'll be like, oh, no, you voted for it, so your objection to it doesn't count. Well, you led the protest. You led this. No, it doesn't count. Doesn't count.
So I tweeted that I'm gonna remind people after this election who supported Trump, who is pushing for Trump, and that if he becomes president, they'll be responsible for what he does. And then people responded, well, won't you be responsible for what Hillary does? And yes, but every time someone says, oh, you voted for Hillary, so you were for this, I will say, yes, I voted for Hillary over Donald Trump. Now, please make the case why you would prefer Donald Trump to be in the White House right now.
Well, yeah, but it's going to be look, it's always a winning argument when any time the candidate who they voted against does something reprehensible. You're going to they'll say, well, I don't know, she wouldn't have done this. I'll take my chances with Trump. He wouldn't have bombed Yemen, or wouldn't have, when something, because of course terrible things will happen. As they would have under any president, but many of them will be policies that Hillary supports and that we hate.
I didn't know that we lived in a country full of psychics and fortune tellers, right? All of this talk about how Trump isn't as bad as people think he is ridiculous, coming from progressives specifically. How do you know? How do you know? There was one argument about how, Donald Trump isn't really going to be the one in charge. It's going to be Mike Pence, and Mike Pence can be managed. That was the argument. Mike Pence, is a deplorable person, okay? Based on the types of laws he pushed for and signed in the state of Indiana, he is a bad person. Forcing women to pay for burials after they get an abortion, to bury their fetus, okay? That's just one example. What he does or what he thinks about, taxes, how the economy should run, all of these things make him beyond worse than Hillary Clinton.
For AIDS and HIV research and care, and wanted it redirected to gay conversion therapy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a madman. That's a madman who will kill people in order to satiate his peculiar beliefs about how humans are. And I think Mike Pence is in the same category as Donald Trump. That's why I picked him. He's a different kind of person, and he gets how the levers of government work. So I suppose, in that sense, he's better, but in many ways, he's worse. They were a perfect couple.
Yeah. So I just want to say two quick last things about that, because in the next hour, we're going to have one last debate. So the four of us here, we disagree on many things, but on the Hillary Clinton vote, we all agree. So that's why I want to save it for the next hour, where we're going to bring in, the aggressive progressives. I thought I was the aggressive progressive. Yeah. Anyway, Jimmy Dore and Steve-O are going to come in and make one last case.
And that's good, because people say that this can be a bit of an echo chamber. And so it's good to see the pro-Trump side advanced every once in a while.
Yeah, save it for the show. Save it for the show, okay? So look, my last...
Please explain how there's any other option. Tomorrow morning, Hillary Clinton will be president or Donald Trump will be president. If you believe in anything else, you are off in Middle-earth. You're in a fantasy adventure I would like to join you on, but it's not actually going to happen.
Okay. My last two quick things is, hey, you know what? I wasn't proud to vote for Hillary Clinton today. It's not like I'm like, yes, finally, Hillary Clinton, right? But I was proud that I got to vote against a fascist in my life.
That's right. So that's right. That's exactly how I felt, except I'm more prouder to vote for Hillary Clinton because I don't think she's as terrible as you do, but I was not... it's not. I wish we had not thought, she gets to be president now. Like, we would have been a better country if we hadn't decided, it's her turn. But voting against Donald Trump, taking a stand with millions and millions of other people, hopefully a solid majority of people, to say, no, not here, Not in this country. You don't
That's
get to
right.
talk that way, act that way, single people out, divide people in that aggressive, horrible manner. You do own many of your supporters. I get everybody's got supporters we're not going to like, but you don't get to. You do have to own the Klan, and you do have to own the white supremacist movement. And being able in the same election to say no to Donald Trump and no to the death penalty made it a thrilling election for me. And and regardless of what you think about Hillary Clinton, obviously we are overdue to have a woman in charge. This is not our ideal choice, but hopefully this, long after we're gone, 1 out of every 6 or 7 will be women. We don't want any more than that. No, hopefully it's the beginning of an issue where every year there's as good a chance that a woman will be elected president as a man.
Yeah. So I decided I lied a little bit because I'm going to go a little longer on the second part of the story. So I was eating breakfast with my kids this morning before I went to go vote, and they were both so excited at the idea that a girl could be president. They say girl, right?
Uh-huh.
And so Joy was excited, and then I said, and then they found out that Donald Trump was. Because I told them it just came up because of school that I went to the same school as Donald Trump, and they're like, no. And I'm like, that means that somebody you're going to school with could also be president one day. And they're like, really? Like, Pro was like Darren? Right?
That's the person he thought.
Darren sounds pretty good.
Or Alex? And Joy looks up immediately in the precocious way she does it, goes, or me.
Oh. Look at the Pro thinking small and Joy thinking big. Yeah.
Totally. And so... But look, there is value in it. I just because there's you shouldn't vote on someone just based on their gender. Of course,
Right.
I would have never voted for Carly Fiorina, right, or Sarah Palin. Now, but there is a little bit of joy in a 4-year-old girl this morning going, or me.
Josie has been into it for 9 months now. The fact that a girl could be president. I mean, first of all, she doesn't think it's as big a deal. Any girl thinks as I do. Like I was like, we could go to a UCLA basketball game. We're going to go watch the Lady Bruins play and the girls will play. And she was like, of course. Can we go to a boys game too? And I'm like, yeah, you're missing it. Okay, all right, yes. But I have a video which I should send to somebody here so we could play it. We could get it edited properly. We got her because it's me and Lee. We got her her placemat has photos of all the presidents. Right? It's like for kids much older, right? And so she eats every day with, James Buchanan and so forth. And her babysitter sent us a video one night because she's looking at it and she goes, why aren't there any girls here? Right?
Already a lid.
Right. And and the thing, and then the babysitter Maria says, well, maybe this year, this was during the primary. She goes, yeah, maybe Hillary Clinton. And Josie goes, yeah, maybe Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. Or in the middle it was Bernie Sanders.
Well, that's another reason why I was proud to vote against Donald Trump, because all the 1,000 issues I got with Hillary Clinton, the idea of Donald Trump beating the person who could be the first female president.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
it doesn't
right.
get any worse than that.
That's right.
You
For
guys-
pure
you
irony,
guys-
that doesn't sway my vote at all. But for irony purposes, yes, that
Yeah.
would be interesting.
I actually experienced something yesterday that I guess I shouldn't have been shocked by, considering the rhetoric that we've been dealing with during this election. But it did shock me in the moment, and I did react to it. So John and I were in Reno, Nevada for the Fusion show, and very early in the morning, I went downstairs, just woken up, I was pretty grumpy, to go get a cup of coffee.
And play Game of Thrones slots.
And as I was waiting in line, there were 2 older white guys from the Cato Institute. There was apparently some sort of Cato conference there. That's a libertarian think tank, by the way.
They must have swarmed the TYT on Fusion set.
Oh, totally. They're all about it. No. They're behind me, and in the span of 5 minutes, they badmouthed Latinos loudly and very transparently. Badmouthed Latinos, Muslims, and black people, okay? Latinos don't contribute anything to society. I'm paraphrasing. They didn't speak that eloquently.
Except for all the hard work that they do that everyone else refuses to do. But outside of that.
So, Muslims are terrorists. The standard, right-wing propaganda about minorities. And I just couldn't take it anymore. And I just turned around and I told them to shut the F up. And they were like shocked that someone had said anything. And then that was it. They stopped talking. I think they were embarrassed. There was a line full of people and I was pretty loud. And we wouldn't have experienced that before. Like that kind of open hatred where you feel emboldened enough to talk like that about 3 groups of people in the country that are different from you. And it scares me. I don't want to live in a country like that.
Yeah, you know, it was great that gay and lesbian and trans Americans felt comfortable coming out of the closet. Some stuff should stay in the closet. And so I get it. They thought that before. But feeling comfortable enough to voice it, part of what kills it is that you never voice it. And hopefully you realize, you know what, I'm probably wrong. Like saying it out loud gives it agency. And I love that they were with the Cato Institute and this nonsense notion that somehow libertarians, I get it, because there are individual libertarians who don't think about it much. They just don't like the Democrats. They don't like the Republicans, and they want limited government. But the libertarian movement in this country is filled with conservatives who are just behaving under a different name. Not all, but many. And
also, so we focused a lot on the fact that the Trump movement and the normalization, a lot of this sort of rhetoric of various forms has let people who, as you said, would have normally been in the closet in that regard say it. But we also can't discount that it's adding to it, that there will be some people who are fairly simple-minded will think maybe there's something to this. And if he's considered respectable, if he's considered an actual source for information, then maybe there's something to the fact that black people suck and women suck and Muslims suck and all of that. And there's young people that will now grow up in households where there's more of that sort of talk, and their actual views will be shaped by the fact that it's much more common now.
Yeah, great point.
It's Schrodinger's cat. It actually affects the outcome if you say it out loud.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a bizarre analogy, but some of you got it. Okay.
I'm happy that you made it.
Okay. So here are the things that we're going to discuss more at length as we go forward here that were all just brought up in this discussion. Ballot measures, because they're actually, I think, enormously important in this election. Latino voters and how much of a difference they're going to make. Yes, the shady GOP voters, this discussion we were just having. I was telling Anna this morning, I underestimated how much America is race obsessed. And it's actually, then I realized, it dawned on me, I had like an epiphany. Of course, it's right-wingers doing their usual projection. They keep saying that blacks are race obsessed and minorities are, when it's the exact opposite, right? It's white right-wingers who can't stop thinking in terms of race.
Super fast, just because it was a great reminder of this form of normalization. I was watching, the only ever time I ever watch CNN, MSNBC, whatever, is when I'm on the road. And there was a Trump speech, and he was talking about the reports that in Florida, African-American voting, the population was down. And he said, and there's reports that they're not, the African-Americans aren't voting, and some of them are voting Trump, and my opponents are very worried about those things. That you get to just say, yeah, less blacks are voting, that's bad for them, not for me.
Yeah.
You get to just say it now, 2 days before the election.
And let's just, I'm sure we'll talk about voter fraud will come up because, of course, as we follow what other people are covering. And we're not tough enough on voter fraud. Like, we've tried, but inevitably humans can't be tough enough on this nonsense about voter fraud, which exists the other way. And it just occurs to me that all this talk about voter fraud for years, and I guess this is obvious, but it's tactical too, because it not only is a way for them to say the Democrats cheat, the left cheats, right? Black people are taking your vote. It allows them to reasonably move through this odious legislation, which is reason enough, by the way, to me, to vote for federal judges and voting rights. Hillary Clinton. Easiest call I've ever made in my life.
Climate change.
Huh?
Climate change, too.
Climate change, too, but she's arguably not great on climate change. But her Supreme Court justices will be okay. They won't be odious, and she'll protect voting rights aggressively. That Justice Department will protect voting rights aggressively. I hope you're right on climate change. Right, but if you want to add climate change, I'll take it. So there's just 3 of the clearest reasons ever. They're denying Americans the right to vote because it suits them politically. And that's the only reason why. That's the voter fraud story. And any Republican who mentions voter fraud in the other way is, if not engaging in racial politics, is enabling it at a bare minimum.
Yeah. So they do voter fraud on a macro scale. They do. And we'll talk again more about that. I had another epiphany this morning, again, in a conversation with Anna, about Judeo-Muslim values. And I'll explain that a little bit later. We'll talk about the possible Trump cabinet.
Oh, God.
And so that was leaked yesterday from Trump sources as to who might be in it. I'll get to that in a little bit. And then, of course...
By the way, at our house, just at home, we just installed 2 Trump cabinets, and they're actually pretty good.
Oh, really? I would imagine they would fall apart immediately.
No, the handles are gold, which is nice. Yeah.
Oh, in relation to the cabinet, I also saw a report. It was a photo that people have been tweeting out. It was like uncelebrated in near darkness. Chris Christie puts in his vote, and it's him. It's like he's in a barren area. It's dark, and nobody cares who he's voting for. There's no real coverage aside from some Twitter photos because his reputation has been so sullied.
Did I see correctly that his favorable rating is 19?
I had it at 21 yesterday.
Yeah, okay, so there was, I'm sure, some other poll that had it at 19.
That's right.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, but that's...
He canceled. He was going to go to New Hampshire to campaign for Trump over the weekend, and they just canceled all appearances.
That often, not always, not almost always, but often happens to Republicans. By the time they leave, their popularity rating is in the 20s, which is horrific. Obama, which all these people are like, oh, I don't know, the country's not sure about him. No. He's above 50%, 54, 55 now.
57.
Okay.
57, yeah.
Yeah, 57 compared to Bush, who was at 27 when he was leaving.
Yeah, 26. I just saw a thing today
Rigged.
of like Reagan was at, I don't know, 58. Clinton was at 60. Clinton's was artificially hyped by the Lewinsky scandal, literally, because he just came together for his opponent, and the economy was humming along, no question. But Clinton, obviously, it would have ended at a much lower approval rating if Republicans had just left him alone, not tried to impeach him, just let him be humiliated by the scandal rather than impeached. And Obama's at 55, whatever it was, 55, 56, and Bush 26 and a half. Yeah, just in that.
Jeez.
In that group.
You forget what a miserable failure George W. Bush was. I mean, a lot of you don't forget, but the media forgets. We whitewash it. No. But like they talk about how when you hear any mention of Jimmy Carter in the press, on television, it's either, by the way, he just saved the planet from another disease. Anyway, we're back with more Justin Bieber in a minute, right?
Yeah.
Or, the failure of Jimmy Carter, the weakness of Jimmy Carter. What are you talking about? Jimmy Carter, first of all, peace in the Middle East. I don't want to even get into all of his policies, but left with an approval rating at least 20 points higher than George W. Bush. So why don't you, every breath you take about George W. Bush, why don't you preface it, you do with Carter when he actually deserves it, about the failure of George W. Bush, the weakness of George W. Bush, the patheticness of George W. Bush. 27% approval rating. I cannot describe to you how low that is. It used to be a thing that didn't happen in American politics.
Yeah, it's look, I've been all over the place on this election. But at one point, one of the smart things I said, which I later totally contradicted by saying the opposite.
Good work.
Yeah, but like at the beginning, I thought Jeb Bush had no shot, none. I was like, his brother is a catastrophe, and we're not gonna 8 years later. Embrace that. And I think ultimately that was part of the correctness of what happened to Jeb Bush. Yes, low energy, yes, never seemed like a guy running for president, and obviously just got he was a real casualty of Donald Trump more than anybody else. But I think we can't overlook the fact that Americans were like, hey man, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Like, your brother was a moron and terrible. And so this notion, because Bush's approval ratings have come up, because he hasn't been president. He hasn't pointlessly invaded a country in 8 years. So people think of him a little differently now.
But imagine if for the past 3 months it had been Jeb Bush instead of Trump. I don't find it hard to believe that he'd be beating Hillary Clinton.
No, and it would have been, we talked about that
Decisively.
yesterday on the post-game show, and just the nature of the arguments would be different. I would still obviously be an aggressive supporter of Hillary Clinton, again, because of judges and voting rights, for no other reason. That's enough to me. It's more than enough. But we would have known that, man, from a governing point of view, the parties are like, they'd come from here and here to like here and here.
Yeah.
So...
Sorry, I just wanted to make one quick point about Jeb versus Hillary, if we were dealing with that instead of Trump. I think that Jeb would have a much easier time beating Hillary, to be honest with you, because one thing that Trump never really had was a sound strategy, right? He's all over the place. He doesn't know what he's doing. There's no ground game. But more importantly, if he were a smart candidate, he would continuously attack Hillary Clinton and her ties to Wall Street, her corruption. That's what the majority of Americans are upset about. But he wouldn't stay on message. Instead, he would go attack minorities. He would use, questionable rhetoric, violent rhetoric in some cases, and I think that actually did work against him quite a bit. But with someone like Jeb Bush, I think he would have advisors and a campaign strategy that would be much smarter and much savvier when it comes to beating Hillary.
They would have run a professional campaign.
Exactly.
And they would have tried, Trump tried to focus on Hillary, and this campaign, each candidate suffered when they were in the spotlight. But you're right, Trump couldn't avoid being in the spotlight. That's who he is, but that's also why he won.
Yeah.
So I've got to say something about that. I've been trying to get through the rundown of things we're going to do, and we're half an hour in because I haven't told you what we're going to do. Anyway, but I can't help myself. I'm going to jump in on this because, look, I actually think that Trump had the better chance of winning than the establishment Republicans. His only problem is that he's an idiot.
Yeah.
We always said he's a wild card.
Yeah.
And he was.
Yeah, and so the populist attack on Hillary Clinton is much more effective. Jeb Bush would not have been able to do a populist attack on her. He couldn't have talked about her corruption. He has the same corruption, but worse. So, he's, all your big donors. Jeb, what are you talking about? You have even bigger donors. So he couldn't have done that line of attack. Maybe a guy like Kasich, who would be full of crap, but maybe could have pulled it off because his last name isn't Bush or Clinton. Mm-hmm. So he might have, but the best candidate would have been a Trump-like angry populist who just wasn't grotesquely incompetent and didn't constantly punch himself in the face. So if he just, instead of talking about the fallen soldier in Iraq, the Khan family, and instead of talking about how he's not going to respect the results of the election and is not in favor of our Constitution and all these insane things that Trump said, if that populist candidate, all he said over and over again was, you're corrupt, the establishment is the worst, the establishment's been screwing you, that would have been a cakewalk, okay? Like a Dave Bratt, how he beat, Dave Bratt's this, I don't know if you guys remember, he's the guy who beat Eric Cantor. Eric Cantor was the House Majority Leader, the number 2 person in the House for the Republicans. And he lost in a primary to this total unknown named Dave Bratt. And Dave Bratt was not just that he was more conservative than Eric Cantor. No. He ran a more populist campaign. So it depends on your definition of conservative. Dave Bratt said, you know who's screwing you? The banks and the establishment. And people were like, yes! It was unprecedented. A sitting House Majority Leader had never lost in a primary. And Dave Bratt won. Okay. Yeah, and so if a guy like Dave Bratt had run against Hillary Clinton, it would have been a cakewalk for the Republicans. But instead, they had this fucking orange buffoon going around going, I'm going to, trample on everything.
Hillary moved left. There's no question, whether she'll govern there, we don't know. We all have our thoughts about it. But if she'd run against a more mainstream Republican, I suspect she would have moved left. I suspect that would have been.
More so?
Yeah, more deliberately, more aggressively with a vice presidential pick, with an effort to galvanize the Bernie movement and a lot of the Obama movement to back her, because that would have been, to me, the best way. Here, her best way was, I'm a sane, steady hand. And that's really all she had to say. It was almost nothing. Let me just keep talking. Let me just keep the focus off me and my emails. That's all I have to do, and I'll just let this guy continue to blow up.
Yeah, when's the last time
you
saw a big speech about, hey, education for your kids? We're going to do this plan that's a hybrid of Bernie Sanders and mine, where we're going to get free college education so your kids can have opportunity. She has that plan.
Right.
She could use it. That's great. I'm glad she has that plan. But she didn't have to go to any of that. She just kept going, Trump over there.
Well, we also know from what we reported that if she had given that speech, the media would have covered it anyway.
Right, and it's not. It's all of our faults. It's our faults for being obsessed with the personalities of it. It's our fault for as Americans for not focusing enough on the issues, for not reading enough, for allowing a half or more of the electorate to go into every election ignorant on both sides of significant issues, and to be obsessed with the personalities of it. To have created a country where a reality star gets the nomination, to continue to sort of tout celebrity over policy. Politics is Hillary obviously has become a different kind of celebrity, also a political celebrity. Politics is hard and complicated, and spending your life in public policy is super unsexy. It's incredibly unsexy, and we don't really fully respect it as the voting populace.
Yeah. So now,
what are we going to do today, Jake?
So as the day goes on, especially later at night, we're going to talk more about the coming populism, the discussion we were having here. What's going to happen in 2020? What should progressives do in the meanwhile if Hillary Clinton's the winner? And in just a little bit, we're going to talk about, is she going to be the winner? Who's going to win tonight? And we'll give you some details on the polling that gives you some sense of which way that it's going. And maybe if we're lucky, at the very end of the night, I might do one last Loser Donald, which would be great. And
let me do it.
And gee, I wonder what it would be on. And then for you guys, we have a lot more streams. We've got reporters in Philly and in New York, at Trump headquarters, at Clinton headquarters. Nomi Cones is in Philadelphia, seeing if the Republicans are doing any kind of voter suppression there. There's apparently already long lines there, but she reports back in the morning that the lines are moving fine and that she is not seeing voter suppression yet. So she's going to, if you're watching us on Facebook, we'll have multiple streams going on at the same time often. So facebook.com/The Young Turks. Jordan Chariton will be reporting from New York. We've got a protest that's happening starting at 8 o'clock Eastern outside of Hillary Clinton headquarters at the Jacob Javits Center in Manhattan. It's a joyous protest. A lot of people who go there will have voted for Hillary Clinton, but they still want her to make sure she does not run on big donor money next time around. So there's one request only. That is, next time, free and fair elections, meaning no big donor money. And if she makes that promise, well, then we'll have much more confidence that she'll actually work really hard the next 4 years to get big money out of politics. Because if she doesn't, then she would be at a disadvantage. So that would be a tremendous promise if she made that. And there's no reason not to start pressing on her, pressing her on it immediately. Those guys are gathering at 37th Street and 11th Avenue in New York at 8 p.m. And Jordan's going to interview a whole bunch of people that go there to see, get their perspective on why they care so much about getting money out of politics. There'll probably be one chant, and that's just next time free and fair. The Mankiewicz rule, don't over-chant, okay?
I wouldn't even use the word over in that.
I hear you. We're just one fun chant. But you're going to like this part.
Free and fair is a chant? There's no rhyme there.
I know. Our chants don't have to rhyme. Don't make me bring out puns. Okay.
How about this? Freedom isn't free. Elections should be.
It's something. It's something.
Don't
Okay.
chant that.
How about Mondale Ferraro? Oh boy, watch out for tomorrow.
That was my 1984 chant that we chanted when we were canvassing in Philadelphia. Mondale Ferraro for a better tomorrow. Mondale Ferraro.
That's why he's so turned off on chanting, because that's the last chant he did back in 1984. By the way, this part you'll like though, Ben. We're going to have music. Emma from the TYT Politics team is bringing out a boombox. And half of the songs will be Bruce Springsteen.
No.
Okay. No, I'm serious.
Is that by her choice?
No, my choice.
Okay.
It's because I want revolutionary music that's fun. So the two examples I keep using are Les Mis and Bruce. But like My Hometown, Wherever This Flag Is Flown, We Take Care of Our Own, all these great songs from Bruce Springsteen that are revolutionary and populist. We'll be playing those at the protest too.
Free and fair, because we care. Free and fair, because we care.
All right, something. It's something. Maybe we'll do more than one chant. Okay?
Free
Maybe
and
we
fair.
will.
Pretend you care.
Good one. I like
Come
that.
on, Hillary, put in an effort.
So that should be a blast. If you're anywhere near New York, go ahead and do that. And by the way, if you want to figure out, hey, because we think it's going to be, basically, we talked to the police and to get a lay of the land, because Jacob Javits Center is huge in New York. But sign up for, if it's not 37th and 11th in New York because police move it, then you're going to need to get updates. So go to tytnetwork.com/get updates. tytnetwork.com/get updates to get updates on exactly where that protest is going to be. And Ryan Clayton will be there, and he'll lead the proceedings as well. And so now, finally, let me come back around to Oh, by the way, so one last thing of all the different things that we got going on, Philadelphia, New York, Trump. And by the way, if Donald Trump wins, the protest literally will walk. You guys will gather and you will walk to Trump headquarters, which is 2 miles away, also in Manhattan. Okay, it'll be a nice, interesting walk.
This is if he wins?
Yeah, in the horror scenario if Donald Trump wins.
Where you will be immediately massacred.
Okay.
All hail Trump.
But Wes Clark is inside the building in Clinton headquarters. So Wes is going to be doing some Facebook Lives. He's going to try to talk to some of the Clinton top brass.
Wow.
Okay, and so watch for that as well. Facebook.com/TheYoungTurks on that. Okay, and so finally, let me roll back around to the story I didn't finish about the kids, and then we'll give you the polls. So then after, we talk about how there could be a girl president for the first time, and I think Pro's as excited as Joy is. He thinks that's cool that there's something happening for the first time, right? And then Pro asked me one final question before we went to school. He's like, Baba, why is Donald Trump so bad? Right? And he didn't mean in a, esoteric sense of like, why do people do the things that they do? No, he's like, what is so bad about him?
Did you make him watch the entire run of Loser Donald? The whole playlist, start to finish?
No. And some of that is not kosher for kids. But anyways, did I mention Donald Trump was in 2 porn tapes? Not 1, but 2. For the Judeo Family Values guys out there supporting Donald Trump. Okay, no, I said, Pro, he does 2 things wrong. One is that he doesn't work hard, right? So if somebody doesn't work hard, they're not prepared, and then they don't know what they're doing, right? So like if you don't practice your what they call sight words, right, then you don't know how to read, right? He's like, yeah, that's true. So that's what Trump doesn't do. He doesn't prepare. And last time we had a president who didn't work hard and didn't prepare. It was George Bush, and it was a disaster. And I had to explain to him another time the couple of things that went wrong under Bush. He's like, oh, okay. In fact, he said this time, because I'd explained it earlier, he's like, like George Bush, Daddy? Right? I'm like, yeah, like George Bush.
He's going to be hosting in a year.
I know.
Right. So, okay.
Little.
But then I said the second reason is because...
This job.
What's that?
Aww.
It's like the breakdown on Facebook. Okay. Anyways, I said the second reason is because he is against certain groups of people, and I said that's both wrong and mean and doesn't make any sense. I said, for example, he's got unbelievably, he has another Turkish kid in his first grade class in elementary school, right?
Oh, wow.
And I said, he thinks all people of one particular group are the same. So he'll say, oh, you and Karam are the same, and if Karam does something wrong, you're responsible for it. And he'd be like, and Pro was like, what? Like, to a 6-year-old, that doesn't make any sense. He's like, I don't understand. He's a different kid.
Yeah.
He's not me. I'm like, I know, but Trump says all people in one category. And then I said, you're also Chinese, right? And he has a bunch of Chinese friends. I'd say, like, if Chinchiguga breaks a toy, he'd say it's your fault. He's like, but I didn't break the toy. Right? Yeah. So he just couldn't understand why anybody would do something so weird like that.
I just don't know why Pro won't condemn the breaking of the toy.
Yeah.
Why won't he just name it?
Just say it.
If he just named it, it's the Chinchinguga, right? Then it would all be solved.
And why did Pro come up with the hoax of climate change? Why? Why, Pro?
What I do like, though, is that he doesn't just take statements at face value and just go with it. Like, he questions it. Like, why is he bad? I like that he does that. That's important.
Yeah. It just reminds me of just a small parenting thing, which
we need to have kids
everyone
so
either has experienced.
Not together.
You think you...
Yeah, I like that last caveat.
Yeah, I know.
Like, just in case, not together.
But you think you're going to, when you're a parent, you think you're never going to say, Anna points out that it's good that he questions it, but the number of times that you're tempted to say when they question something, that you go, and eventually you just break down and you go, because I said so.
Yeah, I bet.
And you're like, I can't believe I just said that. I can't believe I want badly to explain to you why, but man, I've been asked. It's been too long. It's been too many minutes.
Break you.
You've asked. Eventually, they just break you.
On the on the 13th why, you're like, no, I've over-explained this.
Yeah.
Okay,
Exactly.
You've gotten me to over-talk, so you know we've crossed the boundary.
Well, because at some point you realize that what the kids are doing is like what alt-right people in the media or Ann Coulter does. They're not actually engaging in an argument that you just defer on. They're doing something sideways to the argument. They're trying to piss you off.
Yeah,
Did
Josie's
you
a
just
troll.
compare their kids to Ann Coulter?
Yeah, Josie's a total troll. Yeah.
So no.
Does he have like a Pepe doll?
Pro's first couple of whys are super genuine, as I'm sure almost all kids are, right?
Then they go crazy.
Yeah, if you're on the 13th why, there's a little why.
Yeah, there's no question that's true. So I want to mention a tweet I did this morning because you mentioned Ann Coulter. It reminded me. She had that hideous tweet.
Yeah.
I don't know, it was yesterday. That just a reminder. She's like, if the Constitution said or whatever, if we only allowed people who had all four of their grandparents,
At least four
of their grandparents born in the United States, Trump would win in a 50-state landslide. I mean, this just it doesn't deserve a response. It's. And so I pointed out that I was like, great point. You're always thinking out of the box. But if only Trump's, here's another thing. I was like, if only Trump's family were allowed to vote, Trump would win 4-2.
Also, by the way, under her new rule, Trump himself would not be allowed to vote since one of his grandparents wasn't born in the U.S.
Let alone all of his wives.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, as people have pointed out, it's a very similar policy to what they had in Nazi Germany.
I mean, it's hideous but just for the record, I'm going with Tiffany and Trump himself.
Come on, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I can't believe it's me. No, I vote no.
I don't believe
Wrong.
Ivanka's not voting for him. I don't think.
Well,
she gets in there, she votes Hillary, and then she goes out and says, "Yay, Daddy!"
Or, but also like Melania. Like after all she's been through,
Yeah.
she'd be like, yeah, I don't think so, Hillary.
Oh, no way Marla Maples is voting for Trump.
I started following Marla Maples on the plane ride back because she said some interesting things, and she's super crunchy and earthy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
But earlier in the year, she did say she supported Trump, but it was like at the beginning of his campaign. She said she didn't say supported him. She was like, "Oh, he's a good guy and a good father, and I'm glad he's doing what he thinks is best." But I'm with you. There's no way Marla Maples.
Okay. So, I mean, look, I know that we thought we were done with the racist trolls like Ann Coulter, and, we had the ban on her. We had the ban on one other guy named Trump, right? Isn't that amazing?
I know.
There was only two guys we'd ever banned in TYT history, and one of them was Donald Trump, way before he ran this time around. Yeah. And he broke us on that, to be fair. Okay,
and the other one you
like
debated.
Kids. And the other one I debated. Yeah, I mean, boy. But at some point, we've got, as a country, regain our sanity and get back to that. Because Ann Coulter is...
I've got suggestions for bans. After the election, we should revisit that policy.
Because Ann Coulter is an out-and-out racist. It's not like, hey, you guys are being libs or social justice warriors or whatever. No, she hates immigrants. She says that she's against the browning of America.
That's how you
I'm
lock.
very
That's how
much
you
in
lock in
favor of the
flavor.
browning of America.
Yeah, totally,
that sounds fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
You've been browned. Don't worry.
Oh, I know.
So, what can Brown do for you? All right. Anyway, no, but look, the jury's in. The jury's in on her, and her saying all four of your parents being real Americans and born here in America, and that's how you should vote. Well, that's just a big middle finger to every new group of immigrants that have come in, and it's not based on, hey, you know what? I was really disgruntled with the Polish immigrant wave back in the 1940s, right? Yeah. No, we know what she's talking about.
I wouldn't be able to vote. I'm like the whitest person in the world. I wouldn't be able to vote because not all of my grandparents. In fact, I think maybe two of them were born in America.
I'm the only person at this table who could vote. So at this table, still be 1-0 Hillary.
Trust me, dig a little bit deeper. She's got problems with you too.
I'm sure. Yeah.
You
don't have to dig very deep. Yeah.
By the way, really quickly, just going back to the immigrant thing, Cenk was in a documentary called All Governments Lie. I had a quick cameo. But in it, they talked about this story that didn't get any coverage. I didn't know about it. I don't know if you had known about it. It was a mass grave that was found in Texas near the border. And apparently, people were trying to cross. I don't know exactly what happened. They all died, and they were all buried in, plastic bags together in a mass grave. And so I don't know how you felt watching that. I know it broke your heart, but, I literally started tearing up and crying because I thought about the number of people who risk their lives to come here, not because they're trying to bring crime or violence or rape or whatever Donald Trump accuses them of, they are leaving everything behind, literally risking their lives, in a lot of cases dying for a better life for their families. And if stories like that got a little more coverage, I feel like we would be having a different discussion when it comes to immigration, you know?
Yeah, and so that's going to go to one of the points we're going to talk about throughout the day, which is in the old words of George W. Bush, I misunderestimated how much this country's obsessed with race. Because if, here we go, name the category. A Muslim guy had killed 200 white Americans and put them in a mass grave. That would be the biggest story of the year, easily.
Yeah.
Maybe the decade, right? If a black guy had killed 200 white guys and put them in a mass grave, gigantic, endless story. And he said, I did it for Black Lives Matter. Okay, whatever. The biggest story of the year, right? A Mexican guy crossed the border, kills 200 white guys, puts them in a mass grave. Like, you know the enormity of those stories. 200 Mexicans cross the border, they somehow die. We don't know how they had died.
200?
There was 200 in that mass grave, okay? And they put it in a mass grave, nobody gives a shit. Nobody covers
even covered it.
No,
it wasn't a news story.
200 Mexicans in a mass grave. Who cares? Who cares? And we move on.
And even if you don't think that they were murdered, at the very least, it is a tragedy. If
That's right.
If 200 had been lost on a plane, we would have covered it. Maybe.
How did 200 people die and not be murdered? I mean,
no, it's probably
no. We really don't know that. It might have been that they were crossing the border and their bodies were collected from different parts near that area, and they're like, oh, what do we do with them? Oh, fuck it, just put them in a mass grave. Who cares, right?
200 people, and it just seems.
That's crazy.
Seems crazy, but
we don't know because nobody other than this one guy who's featured in the movie and that works for the Nation Institute, who had over a year to investigate it, which is great that the Nation Institute does that. Other than him, no one else is covering it.
I mean, maybe they were in like trucks that were left open and they died of
Yeah, it might. Yeah, look, they sometimes bring them in big trucks, and so. If you don't have air in there, maybe they all died in the truck, and then somebody dumped them, and the authorities here in America found them, and they're like, just put them in bags. They
didn't even care to identify the people. I mean, that was another part of it. I mean, the investigative reporter went out of his way to work with a university to identify the individuals that were killed or whatever happened to them, because there are people still living in Mexico. They're like, our loved ones are missing. We don't know where they are. You know, imagine what that's like.
They also could have been massacred in Mexico by the cartels and then transported over and dumped in Mexico.
So, we don't know, but it's amazing that no one cares.
Yeah.
And by the way, like I said on the show yesterday, the British kid, 19 years old, tried to assassinate Donald Trump. That's a big story. He's only going to get like 2 years now in a plea deal, it looks like. But nobody covers it because he was white. If a Muslim guy tried to assassinate Donald Trump, oh my God! Imagine the size of that story.
He might have won.
Or a black guy who said he's doing it for Black Lives Matter. Oh my God! Imagine the size of that story. Or a Latino who had just crossed the border tried to kill Donald Trump. The size of that story. Oh, white kid tried to kill Donald Trump. Who cares? Let's move on. Nobody talked about it. This country's obsessed with race. Apparently, if you're white, you can take over federal buildings. You can point guns at by the way, if you're a right wing, if you're an environmentalist, good luck, brother. Okay, you can put guns at cops' head and say, we're going to murder you. You can try to kill their beloved hero, Donald Trump, and still no one will give a shit.
Well, not just trying. I mean, Sean King's been tweeting out in a small period, it was like 5 white guys had killed 6 cops. Like, they're apparently right-wingers who hated the cops, killed them. Nobody cares. I mean, we covered the guy who killed 2. How much media did that get? He killed 2 cops in an ambush.
That's why I say at the end of those stories, I said, look, maybe I could be proven wrong, but I'm going to predict it ahead of time. We will cover the story about this white right-winger who hates cops and who murdered those cops, and we'll be the last ones to cover it. And you'll never hear of it again because it doesn't serve their narrative.
Yeah.
If Black Lives Matter had executed 2 cops, what was that, in Kansas? See, I'm starting to forget. I think it was in Kansas, okay? Oh, my God. I mean, look at what happened in Dallas. Look at what happened in Louisiana. And they weren't Black Lives Matter guys. The guy in Dallas was specifically rejected from all the black groups he tried to join, but nonetheless, they were all blamed for it. Meanwhile, 2 cops get executed in the middle of the country. People are like, oh, white guy did it? Who gives a shit? Who cares?
Yeah.
Because they don't care about the cops. They don't care about criminality. They
about
don't
the
care about
narrative.
terrorism. They care about what race is he? What race is he? Because it's all about the race. It's not about the action. So, all right, anyway, for God's sake, let's do... right. We got to take a break soon. Okay, so let's do super quick, let's just macro picture on the polls, and then we're going to take a break in a little bit because next hour, one last hill or high water fight, okay? Steve-O and Jimmy Dore are going to come in, and we're going to have one more conversation. Ben and I are going to stay about, what is the downside of voting for Hillary Clinton, not of having her as president, but of voting for Hillary Clinton. So national polls, Ben and I discussed this in the postgame last night for members, tytnetwork.com/join, by the way. Starting at 3 o'clock Eastern, you're going to have a whole 10 hours, an extra stream just for members. So don't miss that either. Brian Unger, the Undertaker, Unger Games star is coming in. Ida Rodriguez is coming in.
All right.
Okay.
That's awesome.
They'll be on this show. They'll be on the members only show. So it's going to be fantastic. Anyway, last night as we were discussing the polls, I was saying 2.5 point lead nationwide for Hillary Clinton, but that was 2 days ago. And then Ben read 6 polls in a row of her at a 4 point lead. Okay. Yeah. So the latest polls have her very clearly at a 4 point lead nationally. 2.5 points. When she was at 2.5 points a couple of days ago when I was panicking on Saturday, if the late deciders break against her, and I'm assuming that those late deciders are about 1.5 points, right? Oh shit, it's a 1 point race. That's a statistical tie. Yeah. And in the different state by state, votes,
there was a very real possibility Hillary could win by 1 or 1.5 points and lose the Electoral College.
That's right. She
Still
could
is,
lose the
but
Electoral College.
Possible, yeah.
And so that's still possible, but it's less possible today because the late deciders appear to have, in that analysis, broken the other way, and she went from 2.5, not down to 1, but from 2.5 up to 4.
And so we have to combine the two things. One, that the early voting data, especially in some of the most consequential states, looks good for Hillary Clinton. And then that poll-wise, after the Comey announcement of several days ago, it seems like if there's been an influence on Election Day, it's towards her.
Yeah,
I mean, combine those two things, it's both good. Now, there are some states that didn't have early voting at all, which seems insane at this point. And there are important states, too, like Pennsylvania.
I mean, late breaking, I don't know. People go back and forth, and the race has sort of gone back to where it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, sort of gone back to where it was pre-Comey announcement.
Almost.
Maybe not quite.
Almost.
Not quite. She had a slightly bigger lead pre-Comey, but we don't know whether that would have, most elections get closer.
Yeah.
So that might have happened anyway. It definitely didn't help. I don't even know that we talked about it a little yesterday. I don't even know that the revelation that there wasn't going to be a prosecution, or that the Wiener emails didn't reveal anything. I don't even know how much that helped because it was another day of stories and we were already done with it. We'll never know. It probably didn't hurt, but it might have been best to just stop to never mention it again.
So, Jesus, I don't know if you've got the electoral map up that you can pull up there. If you can, grab that while I'm mentioning this. Because, look, I know that people talk about a whole bunch of different swing states, but I don't think Arizona is a real swing state. I don't think, I eliminated what I view to be states that are very likely going to Trump and Clinton based on polling advantages. Georgia, Arizona. I don't have Michigan on here. I know that people were panicking about Michigan. Democrats were panicking about Michigan.
You have the wrong but you're crazy to have Pennsylvania on there, not Michigan. Michigan's in more danger.
So we can
Really?
We can talk about that. But the way I had it a couple of days ago, when it looked like Pennsylvania was in more danger than Michigan, I left Michigan out. But you can add that. But the way that I had the map then is 6 states that are your real swing states, where you had real questions as to who's going to win. And so I'll tell you what those are in a second. But at that point, there you go, perfect. Clinton's at 239 and Trump is at 214, okay? This is assuming that Hillary Clinton wins Michigan and Donald Trump wins Arizona and Georgia, et cetera, okay? Iowa. So your 6 states that are going to determine the election today are Nevada, Colorado on the West Coast, okay? Very, very important. And then on the East Coast, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Florida. So those are, even if you have Michigan up on the board or you think that, Hillary Clinton has an outside chance in Arizona, et cetera, it doesn't really matter because if Trump wins Michigan, that means he probably won Pennsylvania and he probably won fairly easily. If Hillary Clinton won Arizona, she landslided him. So it's totally irrelevant, right? So those are the 6 most important states. The East Coast comes in first, and Florida closes at 7 o'clock. Pennsylvania closes at 8 o'clock.
Does all of Florida close at 7 o'clock?
I know some of it does. And the minute that some of it closes at 7 o'clock, you'll have the early voting results immediately.
Yeah.
So that's 7 o'clock Eastern, where we'll begin to have real information. Some portions of Indiana close at 6 o'clock. That also has some ramifications for Evan Bayh, the Senate, and maybe some tea leaves on.
I'd take
Florida's
any amount of money against Evan Bayh. There's no amount of money that I think I can. Evan Bayh's going to lose, and he gave it away, and he has Evan Bayh to blame.
Yeah. Florida's 7 p.m. the Eastern time zone,
the
portion 8
Panhandle
p.m.
closes at 8,
Right. So we will discuss all those states and what happens under the different scenarios as the day continues. But we've got to take a break here.
Because you're wrong, but okay.
Okay, yeah, because, again, you could put Michigan on that list, and Ben will give you more details on why I'm wrong on those 6 that we just outlined. So, Jimmy and Steve coming back, tell everybody, sharing is caring, share on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, and let everybody know one last big fight coming up in the next hour. Do you vote for Hillary Clinton or someone else? They're not voting for Donald Trump, okay? But I believe they both voted for Jill Stein. We'll find out when we come back and why they did that. I think they have some good cases. Obviously, we'll be on the other side. And so we'll be right back in a couple of minutes.
I'm Jimmy McMillan. I represent the Rent is Too Damn High party. Now, I found this party over 10 years ago because people were playing a silly game. But today is a big day for our movement. I'm here today to address the issue. People can't afford to travel anywhere. They can't afford to go any place on the weekend. They're stuck at home. Why? Because the car rent is too damn high.
Car rent?
Yes, car rental fee.
Jimmy, you're changing this whole thing. It wasn't about car rent.
I'm not changing anything. You're just not listening.
No, Jimmy, get out of here.
Are you listening? Hit it! Rent is too damn high. My mustache haircut is too damn fly. I'm on a mission again to give the people my word. Car rental around here is too damn absurd.
Stop it. Now, Jimmy, this is crazy. This is supposed to be a political party. Did you sell out?
That's what you think.
Yeah.
We need 6 cities to change the game. To rent a car place to keep us sane. SIXT now on the scene with car rental prices out of the scene. Cause rent is too damn high. I say the rent is too damn high. I'm Jimmy McMillan. Here's the key. I'm riding with sick. Come and ride with me. The rent is too damn high. I say the rent is too damn high. The rent is too damn high. I say the rent. Any more questions? Not so fast.
Your food smells like vomit.
Turks election coverage. I've been billing this as one last fight. Hill or high water.
Hill or high water. That's not gonna.
So the aggressive progressives are here. I don't know why I let him steal that title from me. I'm the aggressive progressive.
Not really. You're an aggressive moderate.
You're a sellout. You're a Hillary supporter.
So seriously, tell the audience how much is the Clinton Foundation paying you?
Okay, well, look. So Steve is also our chief business officer at the Young Turks, so he knows the answer. So I can't believe he put me on the spot like that. And I'm not going to have to admit it.
No.
Fine, it's $0.
No.
Yeah, but what about
You're a
that
terrible negotiator.
What about that fusion money?
Okay, and that conversation that I had with Haim Sabah, who I have never met.
So correct me if I'm wrong. You're getting a negative $10,000 a week to promote Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, well, when I lose members, yes, in essence,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
Anyway, so we are going to talk about I want to ask you guys who you voted for, why, and we'll have that discussion. But Jimmy, before we get started on all that, you want to talk about the lines.
So I go to vote where I normally vote in Pasadena, and there's never a line. Ever. No, I walk in, it's an empty, you can hear an echo.
It's because you keep going when it's not election day.
That is true. That is true. It's also a church.
Yeah.
So there was a line out to the street, and I'm like, it'll probably move. You know, I left myself a half hour. I'm like, so I stand there for 20 minutes, and I didn't move. And I'm like, well, I'm going to be late for work. You know, what do I do? And then I start thinking, well, look at all everybody else looked like regular people in line, right? They all looked like they were going to regular jobs. And I was like, this is horrible that we do this. And then I remembered, I vote by mail.
You already voted?
I have it set up. So I leave the line and I go home and I'm like, I'll never find this thing, right? My ballot. I found it the third place I looked. There it is. I'm like, son of a bitch, I can vote today. I feel so great.
Okay, I have a similar story, very similar. So I get out there, the place is a senior citizen center, nobody's ever there, there's never a line, it's LA, whatever, right? You know why? Because we have plenty of voting areas.
Yeah.
And so that's why there's never a line. And so this time, there's a line around the corner. I'm like, what the? Right? And I thought, oh my God, Hillary's going to win easy. Okay, this is my bullshit anecdotal evidence. Because
In West LA, there was a line?
yeah, no. And look, West LA is obviously super irrelevant. It's a very liberal place. Of course, Hillary Clinton's going to win in a landslide. Of course, she's going to win California. It's not relevant, right? Although it'll be relevant to our discussion in a minute. No, that to me signaled people are motivated to go vote against Trump. Like people were like, no, I got to get up in the morning. I got to go make sure that I'm going to vote against Trump. That was my reading of it, and I grant you that it's just totally my reading of it, and it could be a different reason.
So
Yeah.
I've been saying for the last week, maybe 2 weeks, because we have a friends email group where we communicate with our friends. Look, this election is over, okay? Trump cannot win. He can't win for a number of reasons. I mean, putting aside his xenophobia, racism, sexism, and all that gets Latinos and other groups to vote in large numbers. He's incompetent. He's just flat out incompetent. He had a chance to win this, and I think he could have if he had just played his cards right, but he didn't. He played every single thing he did wrong. And one of the things he doesn't do right is the ground game. To me, those basic things like infrastructure, people on the ground, get the vote out. Those things are critical. It's one thing for a person to say, yeah, I hate Hillary, I'm going to vote Trump. It's a whole different matter for that person to go out and actually vote. He's not going to do it. So I always thought this election was over a long time ago because you don't just make up that ground game in an instant. That takes months and months of preparation, which he never did. Yeah. So I always thought this election, I mean, in terms of the popular vote, would be always going to be kind of close, but the electoral vote won't be close at all. I think he's going to win by, I think Hillary will have 320 electoral votes when it's all said and done, plus or minus 5. So I never bought into your fear-mongering.
I mean, the degree to which there's so many things wrong there. You're right on a number of things, but one, it wasn't fear-mongering because, again, if you think...
Of course it was. I was kidding around.
No, I know, but he was constantly accused of fear-mongering. I mean, so...
That's why I'm kidding.
Yeah, okay, but I got you. So, but I mean, because, of course, if there's a 1% chance that a meteor hits the Earth, you're going to freaking panic and do all you can to make sure the meteor doesn't hit the Earth because the result is devastating, and I would argue that the result was devastating. But where I think you're wrong is about, I hear you, all those things are right, but there was a moment, especially after the Comey letter, where obviously it appeared to be changing, and it got considerably closer. And we don't really know. And we also know that, in Great Britain, and the demographics are different here, but there was a sentiment, a degree of anger and a degree of a sense of regular people who felt disaffected from the political process, and they took a sledgehammer to it. They had a rare opportunity that we're almost never given in this country to say to the establishment, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know exactly what the result of what I'm doing is, but I get to say F you, and I get to break everything. And that is going to feel
I agree
great.
with you, Ben, and that's the reason why it'll be even that close.
Right, but we don't. So, but if you're conceding that it might be that close, then
by close, I'm saying that's the reason why it's like 320 to whatever the.
I got you, but you're mistaken.
Otherwise, it'll be like a Reagan-Mondale landslide.
It might be. In which case, but
no, I'm saying it won't be because of that anger. If the anger wasn't there, it would be a Reagan.
But so you're conceding that the anger might make it close, but can't put him over the edge. And if the anger is that strong, it might have put him over the edge. I don't think it will now, but
No, my point is that anger would make it as close as 320 to whatever it's going to be.
But but it's more likely. There was no chance that Hillary Clinton was going to lose the popular vote and win electorally. That was like a 0.1 chance. At some point, there was like according at least to 538 and some others, we were up to like a 9% chance that Hillary Clinton was going to win the popular vote but lose the Electoral College.
Yeah.
Look, up until Saturday night, and I was mid-panic Saturday night, I wrote some emails Saturday night because I'm looking at New Hampshire polling, and he's winning on Saturday, okay? I'm looking at the Nevada polling, and he's winning. And now, so I'm looking at Real Clear Politics. Ben will tell me, no, look at all the polls that go to 538. But I looked at 538. And there's a good case to make that based on the last 2 or 3 polls in Nevada and New Hampshire, he was winning. And Pennsylvania, it looked like he was within 2. Now, if you think that's a cakewalk, you're crazy.
And same with Michigan. We had tied polls in Michigan.
Here's why I thought that, okay? Back in 2008, there was a lot of tightening of the race between Romney and Obama towards the end. And there was all this talk about how Nevada is trending Romney, blah, 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 and they're within like the margin of error. But then I read that Obama had like 280 offices in Nevada, and Romney had 3. I was like, oh, Nevada's over. And then Obama won it by like 4 or 7 points, like way, I think 7, way bigger than the margin that the polling showed. So yes, the polling's important, but what's more important is the underlying infrastructure that people don't really look at because that's much harder to do, I suppose, or less sexy.
But that's why there's 2 elements to this that are very important, and then we'll get into the policy issues. But part of the reason we're having this discussion now is, hey, should you have been afraid to vote for a third party, especially if you live in a swing state, right? Or no, she was going to win anyway. Just calm down and vote your conscience or whatever, right? So it's part of the conversation. But so the 2 relevant things here are. Look, you've got what I called last night on the postgame Megxit, right? A combination of Michigan and Brexit that I put together for why things can go in an unexpected direction.
You're a genius.
I am.
I used it when I was talking to my brother, and I was like, I said, which Jen and I started calling Megxit, combining Michigan and Brexit. And he goes, what?
Well, if Trump wins, it's going to be Trexit. Okay, so, which is a little catchy. But anyway, the reason why Michigan went the way that it is was because, as we all know, it was an open primary. So as they polled likely Democratic voters, but you had people that were more people voting than were likely, which is based on previous elections, people who voted in previous elections, and you had more than Democrats voting. So that was an 18-point swing in the polls that was unexpected. So that's gigantic. Brexit was not as big, but still there was a swing that was a little unexpected. And then part of it was the same phenomenon, the populist phenomenon of, I'm going to take a break and through your establishment window. So that's Megxit, right? So, by the way, we're all too cavalier here. I think on Saturday, all the way to Monday, yesterday, when I did at Showtime, before Ben brought in all those new polls, I had it at 35% chance that he could win, which is significant. Now with the new polls in the last 24 hours, I'll bring it down to 10 to 15%. That's a big, big swing. Okay, but you guys
they're literally people who do the numbers, and you just won't give them their number.
No. No,
You
because
got the check number.
Because they're not taking Megxit into account enough, right? And so, look, I can go on and on. But the bottom line is, you guys are all still being too cavalier. My over/under on heart attacks is 2 for today.
I'm not.
So,
I'm not even a little cavalier. I'm terrified.
yeah. Look, because
I'm cavalier.
I'm cavalier.
Totally cavalier.
Totally
Totally cavalier.
I am
Cavalier.
from Cleveland. That's
right.
how much of a cavalier
I feel like
I am.
a Virginia cavalier.
Oh, interesting disagreement I didn't expect there. University of Virginia Cavaliers versus the Cleveland Cavaliers.
I'm a little farther left.
The Cavalier Progressives.
We're cavalier. Well, for me, I'm cavalier for 2 reasons. One, Hillary's going to win anyway, so who cares? Number 2, I actually don't know. Okay, and I'm amused by those who think they're so certain.
Sure.
I don't know who is better or worse. Okay. Yes. You can
as far as legislation getting done,
right?
Not as people.
And yes, he's a much worse person, I would say. Okay. But even that, I don't know. There's issues. But in terms of policy, in terms of impact on the country today, but also more importantly, like 5, 10, 15 years from today, I don't know who's better. I don't know who's worse. Okay, so this idea that one guy's clearly worse, I just
100
don't buy
to nothing.
it.
How obvious it is.
No.
Yeah. Okay. So that's so there's so that's the refrain, right? But then I just look a little deeper, think a little
I looked
harder.
really deep and really hard also. Super deep. I've never gone so deep. It's the deepest I've ever been.
It is ironic that you're saying vote for the establishment while wearing cufflinks.
Throws a cufflinks card out there.
And
no, Donald Trump is allowing Donald Trump to win is a real vote against the establishment. You're right.
my point, I'm not saying to vote anyone to vote for
No
Donald
one's saying
Trump.
yes to
No
Donald
one's saying
Trump.
to vote for Donald Trump because he is a wild card. But I'm saying that I'm not the only one making the point. That it's, in fact, Malcolm X made the point in '64 about Goldwater versus Johnson, that it's better to have the imperialists and the capitalists knew that nobody would go towards the fox, which was Johnson, unless they were given a wolf, which was Goldwater. And so everybody was afraid of nuclear war, and at the same time, he was invading Southeast Asia and killing 3 million people. So what the people like Malcolm X said, it's good to have an ugly face on those bad policies. Right now, we have a nice face on those bad policies. Barack Obama is super popular because these other 2 people running for president, they are hated so much. So his numbers are higher than they've ever been because people are like, oh shit, we're going to lose Barack Obama and we're going to get stuck with one of these 2. And so right now, his approval rating's at 58%, and he's trying to pass the TPP in a lame duck. He's going to try and do that. That's the Democrat. So that's what's wrong with the Democratic Party. That's why half the country doesn't want to vote for Hillary. At the time she's trying to get working people to believe her, her president is pushing a job-crushing, climate-killing trade deal that everyone knows it is, just like NAFTA. She's been running away from NAFTA ever since they passed it, and here we are doing the same thing. So Donald Trump, immediately he gets scrutinized. What's going to happen when the Democrats are going to go back to sleep when Hillary Clinton becomes president? They're going to go to sleep. I think it's important to stay awake. Donald Trump would wake up everybody. He would be overly scrutinized. He's already destroying the Republican Party. He's such an incompetent. He's going to lose this frickin' race to the second most hated person in the world. And that's what an incompetent he is. So I'm saying, just like Steve, we don't know what would have happened. Bernie Sanders, they say he was such a knucklehead that and dreamer, he wouldn't be able to bring health care to people, but somehow Donald Trump's going to get the United States to turn into a fascist state that's going to start imprisoning minorities. By the way, the crime bill did that in '96. So my point is that no one knows what would happen. A lot of people smarter than me make the case that it's better to have an ugly face on these neocon policies instead of a nice face of a Democrat, because Democrats can only get stuff done that Republicans dream of. Right now, we have the NAFTA pass. We deregulated Wall Street. They gutted welfare. A Democrat did all those things. People smarter than me have made the point that Republicans could never have done that stuff and that Bill Clinton was the greater evil. I'm not saying that Donald Trump wouldn't be a greater evil or would. I'm saying no one really knows. But all the evidence is that he's a huge incompetent who's destroying his own party right now, as predicted.
Okay, as quickly as I can, let me make 3 counterpoints. First of all, Malcolm X, well-known hater of Hillary Clinton. So let's just discount his opinion. No, seriously, on the Fox versus Wolf point. So he's right. That's why in the primaries I was screaming, don't elect the Fox. It's going to be a Fox versus Wolf trap, right? So elect the guy who's actually not a Fox or a Wolf, Bernie Sanders, right? Who actually has your best interest in mind. But once that vote was over, they laid the fox versus wolf trap on us. I know that. I talk about that all the time. But that doesn't mean handing the country over to a wolf is the better strategy. See, the reason why that trap works is because there really is a fucking wolf, and Trump is the wolf. So sometimes I say wannabe fascist, sometimes I say borderline fascist, but I think it's fair to just call him fascist.
What would you think would happen if he became president? What would you think would happen?
Okay, so that leads me to my second point, which is you view his incompetence as, don't worry about it, he's incompetent, can't get any of his terrible ideas done. I view it as, no, his incompetence is the most dangerous part of the Trump thing. And I know he's bigoted against Muslims, Mexicans, apparently Jews, and certainly blacks, and the list goes on and on. But no, I think his incompetence is more dangerous because George W. Bush, look at what he did. Hurricane Katrina. Okay, I don't know. What are we going to do? Prepare? No, let's just let Louisiana get flooded. Oh, shit, right? Iraq, the fourth slide. First slide is, hey, how do we enter Iraq? Second slide is, how do we go up to Baghdad? Third slide is, how do we capture Baghdad? The fourth slide literally said TBD, to be determined. Didn't have a fucking plan for how you occupy Iraq after you take Baghdad. That turned into hundreds of thousands of civilians killed. That turned into 50,000 of our guys maimed and wounded, over thousands of our guys killed. That led to ISIS eventually taking over half of Iraq and half of Syria.
Kind of like what's happening in Syria and Libya under who?
No. So you're 100% wrong about that. I'll get to that in a second, okay? So the incompetence is what led to the most catastrophic, let alone, hey, should I regulate the banks? No, fuck it, I won't regulate the banks. Oh, shit. 8 million people just lost their jobs in the Great Recession, okay?
That was the smartest minds on Wall Street who did that, Cenk.
It was a combination. That's also absolutely true. Now, Steve, you're right when you say, hey, Hillary Clinton was in favor of more bombings and staying in Iraq longer. I understand that. And she did Libya, and I get all that. But when you say, Bush, Gore, what the fuck? It doesn't make a difference.
I'm not saying Bush, Gore.
Hold on. I'm voting for Nader because I'm going to vote my conscience. Well, we lived that in 2000. Gore would not have invaded Iraq. And he would have done other things. Maybe you think he's the fox, and those would have been dangerous part of the systemic corruption. Yada. I don't know. I like Gore. I'm biased.
I also like Gore.
Okay? And Gore cares a tremendous about climate change, right? At a minimum, he cares a lot about that.
I think Gore and Hillary are fundamentally different.
Fundamentally different. Okay. But, so he would not have invaded Iraq. And so that we would have never had ISIS. We would have, all those hundreds of thousands of civilians wouldn't have been dead. So yes, sometimes there is a wolf, and sometimes the incompetence makes a giant difference. Not sometimes, almost all the time it makes a giant difference.
So what you're doing is you're blaming the Iraq war on the Nader vote. Ralph Nader opposed the Iraq war. Hillary Clinton supported it, and now you're saying to vote for the person who supported the thing that you say was the fucking mistake of the century.
Hillary Clinton did
That's unbelievable.
No, it isn't unbelievable.
That's crazy logic.
Jimmy, that logic.
That's crazy.
No, your logic is crazy. Hillary Clinton didn't take us to war in Iraq. She supported the war. If Hillary Clinton had been president, we wouldn't have gone to war in Iraq. There was one guy who would have taken us to war.
You don't know that.
No, Jimmy, I don't. I don't know anything. And if that's your argument, if that's your guy's argument,
she fucking supported it.
It's 11:20.
That's unbelievable. That's just like that's not consistent logic.
No, you don't have consistent logic.
Okay.
Hillary Clinton did not. If your argument is going to be each time you don't know that, then I'm going to take the next 40 minutes off. Because,
what do you mean?
Of course, none of us know anything for sure. Maybe Donald Trump would be great. Maybe he'd unify the progressive movement and there'd be a huge progressive president in 2020. But you guys have said 5 times we don't know what's going to happen. Of course we don't. We're rational people. We're analyzing the data that we have and making what we all both think are logical conclusions. So no, I don't know what's going to happen. Now, the notion that Hillary Clinton would have taken us to war in Iraq is not backed by any serious people. None. Hillary Clinton voted for it. It's a shameful vote. It was a reason to vote against her in the Democratic primary. We all voted against her in the Democratic primary. Millions of other people did too, because she not only made the wrong call, she abdicated leadership on it and waited forever to change her mind, whereas other Democrats at least recognized sooner, that was a mistake, I regret my vote, and I'm coming out against it. She waited until a moment when there was no political fallout for her coming out against it, at a time when she was the most important Democrat in the country and could have made a difference.
You're making my argument.
Hold on.
No.
Hold on.
I'm making
on this. I want to move on. And on this one, I agree with you. I don't think she would have invaded Iraq because the invasion of Iraq was so incomprehensibly bizarre because they had nothing to do with 9/11. Would she have invaded other countries? I have no idea, but she would not have invaded Iraq. That was a policy that was espoused by Cheney and the Bushes and all those guys. But here's the thing about Hillary Clinton. She embraces openly the policies of Kissinger and Negroponte. She's proud of it. And she's repeatedly said that she will have a more muscular foreign policy. She has her fingers tied to basically every single arms dealer and the sale of arms. Her people in the State Department, who used to be in charge of the foreign arms export policies, they are now lobbyists for our biggest arms dealers. And they are gleeful that we have all this instability because they want to sell more arms. So the notion that Hillary Clinton is somehow some sort of pacifist or she will keep us out of war
Nobody thinks she's a pacifist.
or anything along those lines is ridiculous. The idea that somehow we are more or that we're more likely to have less war with Hillary than Donald Trump is completely unfounded.
No, that's I have that at exactly 50-50.
Yeah.
So I have
Yeah, I don't know
support
that either.
Clinton over
So
Trump
we agree,
on other grounds.
so we agree on the issue of foreign policy and war that we don't know who is worse, Trump or Hillary at this point.
And let me just be
No, I don't establish that at all.
Okay, so we all have a little slightly different opinion here. Let me just firmly establish what I think on those grounds because it's important. I agree that Hillary Clinton is part of War Incorporated, but at the same time, she was also part of the team that stopped us going to war with Iran. So, like you think she wouldn't have gone to war with Iraq, she has been against wars that would have been catastrophic. Okay, now Jimmy, I hear you. She voted for it, which was callous, which was political calculation, and that was one of the reasons I used in the primaries because. I mean, what kind of person says, let's go kill a couple 100,000 people for my political well-being, okay? So, yeah, that's War Incorporated. Yes, she's muscular, yada, yada. But she wouldn't have done Iraq on her own, as you acknowledged, Steve. She stopped the war with Iran, which is real, which is something very, very, very important. She didn't do it single-handedly. Obama led that, and she was a little skeptical, but I would have been shocked if she had gone to war with Iran. Not shocked. Shocked is too strong. Surprised, okay? Now, on the other hand, with Trump...
Just a real quick question for you, Jenko, at that point. I agree with you that everyone who was a part and parcel of the treaty with Iran should get credit.
Yeah.
And for
Huge
her,
credit.
she gets credit for that, too. Okay?
Yeah.
I'll be totally fair. That said, would you think that she would have done the war in Iran if there was significant political pressure from the American public or from other politicians? For example, let's say there was some Iranian terrorist who came here and did some sort of terrorist act and the country was in a war mood. Would she have the leadership to say, no, cooler heads can prevail, I will keep us out of war, or would she push
If
the button
Iranians came here and engaged in terrorism and they were sent by the Iranian government, no, she'd go to war and Americans would back her.
Not by the government.
Okay, so look, that's
The 9/11
a
scenario.
very hard question because if she's a senator and there is a fervor to go to war with Iran, she'll vote yes. We know because we already saw that. It already happened, right, in Iraq. If she's the president and she gets to drive the train, then I don't know. So, and I say that I don't know literally, like, yeah, I could see her getting, like if she gets pressured by the war machine and Fox News and the Republicans and her popularity slipping and slipping, is she beyond, starting a war to help herself politically? I don't think she's beyond it. Wow. And I think a lot of Hillary Clinton supporters might be really angry at me for saying that. They say, how dare you, et cetera. But no, I know from Iraq war vote that she's not beyond it, okay? So now, but let's turn to the other side, because this is not a who's the better angel. This is the keep it real. Who do we think is more dangerous or is going to cause more harm, right? So on the Republican side, if you had the Bushes and the Rubios of the world that are completely controlled by the neocons, it's a no-brainer. They're worse than Hillary Clinton, okay? Trump is ironically not a no-brainer in this category, okay? So, but again, his incompetence is what worries me. So,
Chief Foreign Policy Advisor is John Bolton.
And yes, keep that in mind. So his incompetence is on two grounds.
Hillary Clinton wants Joe Biden to continue as Secretary of State and praises the work of John Kerry. Donald Trump's Chief Foreign Policy Officer is Donald Trump. You can throw out Henry Kissinger, John Bolton.
Yeah.
You can throw out the names John Negroponte and Henry Kissinger. Those essentially people she's talked to. They are not top advisors. They're not advisors in any way of Hillary Clinton. But we know John Bolton.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. Bolton is horrendous. So
Yeah, so let me
that's a good
just
point.
finish that because that's part one of incompetence is just like George Bush, according to his advisors, he listens to the last guy in the room because he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing, right? So hiring Bolton goes, I don't know. Like, if you really are a non-interventionist, as Trump claimed throughout the primaries and to some degree in the general election, you would never, ever hire John Bolton. But the guy doesn't know anything.
I agree. He doesn't know.
He doesn't know. So that's part. So he's going to stack, his advisors are going to stack his cabinet and his staff full of neocons who are going to drive him to war, and he's not even going to realize it because he's so goddamn stupid.
And we know that he is tempted and persuaded by talk of, we're going to get tough. We're going to show him what means business. And we know where that talk leads when dumb people say that.
Okay, and then finally, last part of it. Second part of the incompetence is somebody gets under his skin. This is not overhyped. He's really out of control. So you think that he can't blunder into a war with North Korea and oops, they just launched the missiles and we just lost 680,000 people living in South Korea? He can do that because he doesn't know any better. And when they say, hey, Mr. President, we really don't want to do that. That's North Korea. Well, I can't believe he said that. No, we're going to show him who's boss, right? No, but Mr. President, they have all these missiles pointed at Seoul, South Korea, let alone Japan, let alone the more unlikely Seattle, Washington, et cetera, right?
Two countries that don't pay their freight. Why should we back them?
Yeah. So on almost Seoul, South Korea alone, I can't countenance Donald Trump as president.
He did say that we should pull the troops out of South Korea. And as soon as he said that, North Korea said, we thought he was a buffoon. Turns out he's a wise man.
So you see, and I'm not trying to play an emotional card here because you're Korean. But you see my point, Steve, that is dangerous.
I hear you. And if your overall argument is that Trump has a lower floor than Hillary, I agree with you because he's a wild card. He could be catastrophically bad. At the same time, he could be neutered because there will be such a strong coalition of voices against him. And I just want to make one point clear on this, okay?
Who?
Everyone, hold on, Ben. So here's my point. Right now, there's just unbelievable violence and breach of constitutional rights and just the worst kind of oligarchy in North Dakota right now, with the protesters just getting their heads smashed in, maced, tortured, stripped naked, thrown into dog. I mean, horrible stuff happening.
Threatening journalists.
Yeah, journalists are being arrested. All the stuff that you wish you would never see at the behest of corporate America that's kind of taken over.
People don't want that happening.
And all these cops are working on their behalf. If we had Trump or any Republican in office right now as our president, we would have every single Democratic senator howling, why isn't the president doing something about this? Is anyone going to do anything on behalf of these water protectors? This is tribal land, it's their sovereign territory, all of that. There hasn't been anything said. And Barack Obama, who is very popular, and I like him too, at a personal level, I have a lot of problems with his policies, but he has literally said, we're going to let this play out. Both sides have to make sure that they don't hurt the other side. Both sides? Are you kidding me? One side is armed to the teeth with riot gear and helicopters and attack dogs.
And tanks.
The other side has literally feathers, and they're singing peace songs and worshiping. So,
Steve, I'm totally with you on that. We cover that literally more than anyone else. Okay, what do you think Trump would do to the water protectors?
No.
That's not my point.
His point is that the Democratic leadership puts the natural opposition to that to sleep. And what Trump presidency does is it wakes everybody up because he puts an ugly face on what's happening. And right now, I know people are thinking, well, if something was really wrong in North Dakota, Barack Obama would do something about it. I heard what he said, and he said he's going to let it play out. So that must be the right thing to do. So that's what's the problem. So can I just make real quick points? I don't want to argue for a Trump presidency. I keep getting suckered into that. It's my own fault. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to see a Trump presidency more than just. My thing is that I think whatever we want as progressives is going to meet, as Kashama Sawant told us, a graveyard inside the Democratic Party. Anytime they fight when she had to fight for the $15 minimum wage, she had to fight against the Democratic Party. If we're going to stop the TPP, we're going to have to fight against the Democratic Party. If we want to re-regulate Wall Street, we're going to have to fight against the Democratic Party. So I think the Democratic Party, because when they got in bed with Wall Street, which happened during the Clinton administration, that was a conscious decision. That just wasn't the normal order of things. It was Bill Clinton's conscious decision to turn from going towards the workers of the base of this country to going towards Wall Street and now Silicon Valley. Who populates the Democratic Party now? Wall Street insiders and Silicon Valley. They used to be the party of workers and unions. Bill Clinton and Al Gore made a conscious decision to turn away from that, to turn their backs on workers. That's why we're in the situation we're in right now, because both political parties has consciously turned their backs on workers. Bill Clinton unwound the New Deal unlike any Republican could only have dreamt about doing. So that's the problem with keep voting. That's what got us here. Bill Clinton was the greater evil. I'm not the first one to say that. A lot of people smarter than me have said that.
A lot of people smarter than you also say he wasn't.
Yeah, that he was the greater evil. And if you look at his record, he did shit that Ronald Reagan dreamt of. He did all the stuff that they want. By the way, he had a private deal to privatize. He had a secret deal with Newt Gingrich to privatize Social Security. Remember when George Bush tried to do that 8 years later? They stopped him. When a Republican tries to do those horrible things, he gets stopped. He couldn't. George Herbert Walker Bush couldn't push NAFTA through Congress. It took a Democrat. That's not my analysis. That's people way smarter than me. So what I'm saying right now
smarter than you,
is if we keep doing so. I'm saying in 2009, America came to a turning point and it failed to turn. People, they should have broken up the banks. Instead of having a jobs program, what they did was they cut unemployment benefits and they took the union rights away from teachers. Our government, the levers of power is seized up. It has failed to be able to respond rationally to problems. That's all Paul Krugman's been talking about. That's what Chris Hedges has been talking about. Our government has failed. It has lost its ability to respond to problems rationally. Half the country is poor or in poverty in the richest country the face of the earth has ever seen. And the Democrats' policies is to make it frickin' worse. TPP, right now, making it worse. We have to have trade deals, but we know, Dean Baker has showed us that when you make a trade deal, you decide who you're going to protect and who you're not going to protect, and who you're going to benefit and who you're not going to benefit. Who gets benefited? Owners. Who loses? Everyone else. Sick people, poor people, workers, everyone else loses except them. And that's what happens when you have a Democrat making that policy. If we had George Bush making that policy or Mitt Romney making that policy, I think we'd have a better chance to stop them. So that I'm not saying
things got better for workers between 2001 and 2009?
I think things have gotten worse for workers in the last 40 years. So once we all became neoliberals, we threw the fucking workers overboard.
I don't know what that term is.
And right now, NAFTA threw them overboard. There's a corporate, as Sheldon Woolen has taught us, there's been a corporate coup d'etat in America in slow motion, and it is complete. Barack Obama, the Democrats went from being the party of union and labor, and when Barack Obama ran against Mitt Romney, he got more money from Wall Street than they did. It is complete. Right now, the Democratic Party's mission in the primary was not to defeat the Republicans because they elevated Trump. What they do, their mission was to defeat the agenda of workers because Democrats are in bed with Wall Street. So they first had to defeat the agenda of the workers, which was defeat Bernie Sanders, and then they moved on to Donald Trump. And now they say, you got no other choice. I just saw Howard Dean. He was being confronted by Katie Couric on Yahoo News. And she said, all these trade deals that they make, how come they never try to help out the people who get left behind? And Howard Dean said, because the people in Washington don't know anything and they live in a bubble. They literally don't know anything. And she said, well, then why are you telling us to vote for Hillary Clinton? And he said, because we don't have a choice. We don't have a choice because they made this choice. And if we keep doing what we've always done, we're going to keep going down this line. I say vote progressive. I say it's time to vote for a Green Party. I think it's time to leave the Democratic Party. And we try to get, if they get 5% in the Greens, that's a great thing for America.
Okay, I'm going to let Ben respond. I just want to let everybody know. This debate is brought to you by the Young Turks members. Normally, we would do this kind of stuff for members all the time because they finance our show. TYTnetwork.com/join. But today it's election day. We wanted to make sure that everybody got a full hearing of all the different points of view. There's a ton of things I want to say about what Jimmy just said. I'm going to let Ben go next. But again, thank you. And if you joined today, you make independent media and these conversations possible. TYTnetwork.com/join.
I don't have much to say. Jimmy, with an impassioned argument for what's wrong with the Democratic Party, I agree with about 85% of it. None of that is a reason not to vote for Hillary Clinton. None of it. Things got worse for American workers between 2001 and 2009. But yes, it's true. It's been a 40-year run, and we need to change it. Donald Trump, to me, allowing Donald Trump to win and a vote of people who are ideologically lean toward the left, to not vote for Hillary Clinton, to not vote against the only person who can beat Donald Trump, is a gigantic risk that I don't think any rational American should make. The point I was making about Hillary and the Iraq War earlier, whenever that was Cenk was not blaming the Nader voters for the Iraq War. We blamed George Bush and Dick Cheney and Paul Wolfowitz for the Iraq War, obviously. That's the only rational person you can blame for the Iraq War. Nor do we blame, as you like to point out, and it's certainly true, that 1 million Florida Democrats voted for...
300,000 Democrats voted for George Bush.
300,000 Democrats. But that's because party affiliation, that happens all the time. Those are probably conservatives who still call themselves Democrats, who probably always vote Republican. So the issue is, when you are ideologically aligned, as most Nader voters were with Al Gore on most issues, that you run a gigantic risk, and we saw that risk. So when there is an ideological tie to one candidate much more stronger than the other, you in a system where only two people can win, that's the damage you do. So the Nader voters and Nader himself bear some of the responsibility for allowing George Bush to win. Their motives were totally pure. I get it. I don't want to shake them and yell at them, but that is what happens. And so it does not have to do with Florida Democrats, and they're not responsible for the Iraq War, but there are repercussions for these decisions. There is only one candidate who can beat Donald Trump, and that candidate is Hillary Clinton. It doesn't negate the things that you said at all. Those are reasonable things. And as I continue to argue, and I hope it's true, I think Hillary Clinton is incredibly malleable. She is a political creature who makes decisions based on how it will impact her power. And for the first time, unlike it turns out in 2009, that was a movement for change and a rejection of George W. Bush and an exciting time, and we all bought into hope and change. But he was always a fairly pragmatic politician, Barack Obama. Hillary Clinton is too. There is clearly, based on what Bernie Sanders has accomplished, based on the fact that Elizabeth Warren is the second most famous Democrat in Washington, that there's a real progressive movement here. And now we have a chance with a recognized movement, hopefully with Bernie Sanders under a Democratic president as Senate Finance Committee chairman, to apply that pressure to the levers of power. That pressure cannot be applied to a Donald Trump administration with any degree of effectiveness. And most often when you give despots and authoritarians and guys with fascist leanings at the very least, you give them power, they keep power, and they flex that power. And I will only add, as I'll probably do again, even if nothing else, judges, voting rights, which to me is the most important issue in this country. Republicans talk about day after day after day after day, they talk about voting fraud. There's only one kind of voter fraud in this country, and it's done by Republicans to keep minorities from voting.
It's election fraud.
It's election fraud, and they do it on a very consistent basis. And no matter what you say about the Democratic Party, that one they've been good at, and they'll continue to be good at.
Not sure about that during the primaries, but anyway, go ahead.
There was no fraud during the primaries, for crying out loud. They didn't keep people from voting. And so now we need to redo that system to make that a fairer system. I agree completely. But voting rights minority voting rights are protected by Democrats. The climate change is much better. Al Gore has actively campaigning for Hillary Clinton's election. Judges, voting rights, climate change. If nothing else, that's worth it right there. Donald Trump cannot be allowed to have those three levers of power.
Okay. I want to jump in for a second. Just real fast, I don't want to get into a big discussion on the voting fraud issue during the primaries. There was absolutely voter suppression. Okay.
Where?
I agree with Steve. Rhode Island, Arizona.
Yeah.
They closed down polling stations.
They did. Voter purges in Brooklyn. There was definitely suppression of votes.
Two people lost their jobs in Brooklyn
Yeah.
because of it.
That being said, everything you've outlined, Ben, makes total sense. So I don't begrudge those who hold their nose and vote for Hillary because they think that's a more rational path forward. That's fine. Again, I don't know. They might be right. I do have a problem with people who think Hillary is actually a good candidate and buy into the ridiculous narrative that she's going to do all these great things for the progressives. I mean, I just don't believe her. I hope. But here's the thing. I want to believe her. Like, I want to be excited for a Clinton presidency. I want to be excited to have the first woman president. I wish I could vote for her, but I cannot. I can't do it for all the reasons that Jimmy outlined before. And so I'm going to vote. So I did vote. I voted for Jill Stein. I didn't vote for her as much as I voted for the Green Party. I want the Green Party to have the 5%. I want them to get matching federal funds. I want to grow the third party movement. I want to have more choices going forward. I think the choices that we're stuck with today are the result of years of choosing the lesser of two evils, years of buying into this two-party system, and I'm tired of it. And if this means that, I know my one vote won't make a difference, but if people like me change this election, and we have Donald Trump as our president, well, that's a chance I'm willing to take, and I'm not going to lose sleep over it. And hopefully, no matter who is the president, whether it's Trump or Hillary, I'm almost certain it'll be Hillary, that we will mobilize and all fight for the right things. Because at the end of the day, everyone at this table wants the same thing. We want a better country. We want better accountability from our government. We want
money out of
values,
politics.
Money out of politics, climate change, less war, renewable energies, all of that. So we're all on the same page. Less income inequality, more social mobility. We want the exact same things. We disagree here on what's the best path to get there.
Yeah, so let me go to the core of the argument then. So, in my opinion. So, look, I agree with Jimmy's rant against the corporate coup, probably 90% or more, okay? I'm the one who started talking about, getting money out of politics back in 2011 when I started Wolfpack, right? And the money is what leads to the corporate takeover because it allows them to legally bribe politicians. So I understand all that. I actually have less hope for Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party than you guys do. Because you guys keep talking about it like, you guys are wrong to, she probably won't go in these progressive directions. I think she has almost no chance of going in those progressive directions. I think she will go in the direction that she is funded. And it's not just the systemic corruption, which I think is 98% of the answer normally in politics, but I read the Podesta emails. I know how Hillary Clinton thinks behind the scenes, and she has internalized it. She really believes that Wall Street has the answer for the problems of Wall Street. She says it over and over again, not just in her speeches, but she says, her staff talk about it in reference to that. So I have less hope for Hillary Clinton, not just than Ben does, but than I think you guys do. I think you're still holding out hope that she could be a progressive somehow. I'm not. So that doesn't mean that there isn't a wolf. Okay, there is still a wolf. The wolf is not imaginary. George Bush was the wolf. We did invade Iraq. We did crash the economy. We did let Louisiana drown, okay? There is a wolf, and his name is Donald Trump. So, yeah, I know what the fox is, but it's not as bad as the wolf. So now we go to Nader, right, in Florida. So Nader is an American hero. He got Richard Nixon to pass the EPA. He got Richard Nixon to do OSHA. On seatbelts alone, he has saved millions of lives. It cannot be undercounted. That guy's a demigod, and he does not get the credit that he deserves. Having said that, now in Florida, yes, Al Gore should have done better. Yes, the butterfly ballot. Yes, 1,000 other things that went wrong. And by the way, Al Gore won Florida.
He won it.
He won. So Supreme Court.
He won 500,000 more freaking votes in the country.
So the people who are most responsible for the wolf of George Bush is the 5 Supreme Court justices who voted based on politics and not based on ideology. They argued for state rights their whole life, and when it came to crunch time, they said, screw states' rights, we're just going to give it to our political ally, George Bush.
He was appointed by judicial fiat,
Right.
Cenk. He didn't win the election.
No, I understand that. And by the way, if you don't know what we're referring to, go back and read the recount of that all the major newspapers did, New York Times, Gannett, Associated Press, by every recount.
Not every recount.
Every recount, but the one that Gore asked for, which only recounted three
counties.
Every full recount of Florida.
I don't think that's right.
No, that is
No,
right.
that's right.
You,
That's right.
Like, go back, we can Google it, etc. Every full recount of Florida, Al Gore won. He was the rightfully elected president of the United States. Anyway, but my point is, but among those factors was people voting for Ralph Nader.
I'm not sure about that because exit polls, I don't know if this is true, but exit polls say that among the Ralph Nader voters, okay, more of them would have voted for Bush than Gore.
I categorically reject that.
I'm just
okay.
The
So
exit polls,
the idea that Ralph Nader's super liberal voters were going to vote for Bush is insanity. So I hear you, and I'll look up the bullshit exit polls that you're referring to.
No,
okay?
you're right. It might be bullshit, but that's what the exit polls show.
Okay,
Yeah.
there's. You know that it's like saying the Bernie Sanders supporters are all going to vote for Donald Trump. Like, we have a conversation about, they're not voting for Donald Trump. They might vote for Jill Stein, but they're not voting for Donald Trump, okay? A sliver of them might, but not the majority. That's insane talk, okay? So, yes, Nader did have an effect. He did have an effect. As much as I love the guy and respect the guy, he had an effect. And so that leads us to, okay, you guys are comfortable in California. You get to vote for Jill Stein, and I think your 5% point is the best point that you guys have, okay? But you live in a swing state, and you think Michigan and Pennsylvania are comfortably blue, but they're not. I mean, 2 days ago, there's polls showing ties, 2 points, etc. Nevada, New Hampshire, not comfortable. Virginia, not comfortable. Florida, nowhere near comfortable. Here we are again in Florida. And you vote for Jill Stein, you are making a moral choice. Nothing against Jill Stein. I interviewed her 3 times. Lovely person. I agree with a lot of her policies.
It's not about her because she can't win. It's about the party.
So my point is, let's take the state of Florida as the example, right? Super close election today in Florida, okay? So when you make a choice to vote for her, you are making a moral choice because you're taking a vote away from Hillary Clinton. Now, I know that you hate that kind of talk, but it is real. I'm the last person on earth to bullshit you on this. If the establishment was trying to trick you, but in fact the Jill Stein vote would help Hillary Clinton, I'd tell you. But it doesn't. It takes a vote away from her. It makes a Donald Trump win in Florida slightly more likely. It is one of the factors that makes it slightly more likely. And that is a risk I am not willing to countenance.
I hear you. But why does a Jill Stein voter, why is that person more culpable than a non-voter?
No, not more culpable. That's why it's not like the Nader voters were the most culpable or more culpable, but they are a factor. It is a factor.
I literally would not vote because I could not vote for more war. I could not.
But
vote
you're
for
making
it.
a moral choice, Jimmy. You're just pretending you're not, okay? Because the reality is either Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton's going to be president. We hate that. I hate it. You hate it. We hate it, right? I wish it was Bernie Sanders. I wish it was somebody else. But you know, as a matter of fact, stone cold fact, that tomorrow either Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton is going to be, elected president, right?
Right.
And so every non-vote and every vote for a third party that doesn't go to Hillary Clinton in a swing state like Florida is a vote that helps Donald Trump become president. I hate that fact, but it is a fact.
So you're saying people who don't vote or vote for anyone other than Hillary are making a morally wrong choice.
No, I do.
Yeah,
but
but
I'm saying that.
well,
so if I'm farther than Ben, I'll go farther than Ben. I am saying that.
No, I agree.
No,
Except
I
I don't
just
think
wanna be clear what
I don't think that it's true about non-voters because some of those non-voters, if they did vote, would vote for Trump. So like I just
And how about Trump
No,
voters?
I thought what they were alluding to. I understand what you're
you
saying.
think
What they're
people
alluding to
voted-
is I can't stand Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump. I'm not voting. I would have voted for Hillary Clinton if you put a gun to my head, but you didn't put a gun to my head. I'm not voting.
right. Then I agree with you.
Yeah.
So
okay.
is it people who? So are you saying then everyone who doesn't vote for Hillary Clinton is making an immoral choice with their vote?
Okay, so let me be very clear about this. First of all, it depends on what state you're in. I know we live in an insane country with an insane electoral college, okay? So if you're in California or Rhode Island or Alabama or Mississippi, I understand getting 5% in the vote makes a difference for the next time the Green Party runs and building the third party. I get that, and I think that is by far your best point, okay? If you live in a swing state, What I don't want to hear is people telling me that they're morally superior to us because, hey, I didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. I made a coward's choice and I didn't vote. I made a coward's choice and I pretended that it didn't matter. I pretended it didn't matter and I'm morally superior to you. Fuck that. No, you're not. Okay? So at best, it's a draw, Jimmy. At best, it's a draw because if you say, hey, I'm not sure who's worse, or Trump or Clinton, I say, okay, I don't agree with you, but I hear you on that. And so you're saying it's a draw. I can respect that, right?
Well, it's
but
total
if you
bullshit.
say Trump is definitely worse and I know it, but fuck it, I'm not going to make a choice and I'm going to blame you later because you made that choice. That's unacceptable.
I don't know how many people are in that category, but I agree with you that that's bullshit. Okay, it's not a coward's. But I don't think it's a coward's choice to not vote if you really deeply don't feel like you can cast a vote for someone. By the same token, you're not morally superior because you didn't vote for someone that you think is bad and someone else did. You know, so those who hate Hillary, who are blaming you for being morally defective for voting for Hillary, that's total bullshit. I can't stand that kind of moral judgment that people throw around election time. This is a free country. You can vote for whoever you want to vote for, or you don't have to vote at all, and they're all fine choices to me. Now, if you want to pressure people into voting a certain way, that's fine too. But this moral judgment is total BS from all directions.
I don't think not voting is an acceptable choice. Obviously, you get to do it. I mean, but we're at an opinion-based show, and we're, you know, of course you get to do it. Nobody's locking you up. Nobody gets to go to your house and scream at you. But you ought to vote because things are almost never equal. And we all have an ability to assess what might be better or worse for America. I don't see how anyone, given the proclivities of most of the people working here, who can hear what Donald Trump said about women, about Muslims, about blacks, about Latinos, who has emboldened the Klan, who has emboldened white supremacists, who ran his final campaign ad with these pretty unsubtle anti-Semitic images and phrases that has opened a door, a dark, ugly, awful door.
Yes.
That is the same as your objections to Hillary Clinton, which are totally sound objections. They, to me, if you work here, I don't see how they are the same.
They're not the same, Ben.
But then it gets to Cenk's point. They're not the same. So you should make a call.
They're not the same. But you know, this is a crazy thing to say. But in Donald Trump's defense, so far they're all words. Okay,
the words matter.
I know words matter. They're all words. He hasn't done any of that shit.
Yeah, so and hopefully,
hopefully he won't. Hopefully he won't. But I agree with you. I have these exact same concerns that you have. The problem with Hillary is that she has actually done many of these things that deeply, deeply trouble us.
And then one more thing is that she hasn't shown any capacity for growth. That was a point Robert Scheer made on my show, was that she hasn't, through her whole life, she hasn't shown any capacity for growth, right? So she's an ex-Walmart board member who goes on to gut welfare while exploding the prison population.
She didn't gut welfare, her husband
You
did.
know what I mean.
Well, it's relevant.
Well, they did run as we get 2 for 1.
Well, so no, we didn't get 2 for 1 then.
So
we got 2 for 1
now. She takes
now,
credit for the good things of his administration, so she has to take the shit from the bad parts of it, too. And he's going back into the White House, too. Anyway, I fucking forgot my point, Ben. God damn it.
She did support that.
That she supported it. She's no growth.
Right, that's it. The no growth. So that's so even after Iraq, okay, if she could, like you said, if she finally did come around to saying it was a mistake or whatever, but she didn't in the 2008 campaign. But then she went on to do Libya, Honduras. She does, and now she wants a more muscular response in Syria. She wants a no-fly zone, which no one's talking about it really seriously. That literally does mean a war, because she's going to shoot down. What she's going to say is she's going to shoot down Russian planes, and then you have to bring ground troops in. That's going to kill a lot of people on the ground.
She's not going to bring in ground troops. She's not going to shoot down Russian planes. And that notion that Jill Stein said, that you said, the notion that calling for a no-fly zone is war is far more scare tactics, warmongering than anybody engaged in on defending Hillary Clinton regarding Putin. There's never been a no-fly zone that we've orchestrated that then led to a war. That's not, I don't know if that's actually true. But the notion that a no-fly zone isn't planned and thought out with allies and that the Russians aren't aware of it. Those are not, you don't just say no-fly zone like, hey, tomorrow we're doing a no-fly zone. There's a Russian plane there, we shot it down, now it's World War III. That's nonsense. That's not how foreign policy works. That's not how the world works.
Well, we are ramping up the Cold War in a big way. Like, we're sending troops to Estonia and Eastern Poland right now. NATO is really ramping up right now. Like, a lot of people are scared. In fact, Even Gorbachev said that we're closer to nuclear war now than any time before in our history. So right now, shit is really like I'm reading about what NATO's doing over there. I have no idea why they're doing and what they're doing.
I don't know that what you're saying is true. I certainly don't agree with it. I don't know that what Gorbachev said. I mean, I'm sure you're not misquoting him, but I mean, I'm not aware of all that NATO is doing. I know that one of these candidates we know will give serious spots at the table to people who are thoughtful and reasoned about foreign policy.
Your John Bolton argument is solid, Ben.
Yeah,
it's a solid argument.
But more than John Bolton, we know what that means. We know who the other people are. Like those are crazy people making these decisions.
Okay, so look, we got to go. We're out of time here, but I have to say two last things, which God knows if you guys respond, spiral out of control. But
I thought this was 2 hours.
Look, look, the one thing you guys, some of you might think this is over the top, but it's an analogy. It doesn't mean it's literal. Okay, I keep thinking about Sophie's Choice. Right. So if you saw that movie from a million years ago, she's a mom. The Nazis come. They say you got to give me one of your kids. Otherwise, we're going to take both of your kids. Okay. So
my mom would have said, "Take them both." I haven't had a good night's sleep in a month.
Okay. So it's not easy. Nothing's easy, and that's a horrible, horrible choice and a horrible analogy. I know, but you can say, "Hey, I didn't choose. I didn't choose." I didn't choose, right? But then both your kids are dead.
No, you could just flip a coin.
Yeah, you could, but you've got to, and my point is you've got to make a choice because there is a real choice and there is a real wolf, okay? So
that's where I disagree with you so fundamentally, Jank, because it is very reasonable for a person to say, I cannot vote for either one of these candidates. I cannot do it.
But they take both your kids.
No,
and you made the choice. You made the choice.
That's not true. That's not true. You're letting someone else make the choice because you don't want to participate in that process. You don't want.
But that's not the choice we have.
So, that is the choice that we have.
Like, so you're letting somebody else make that choice. Okay, great. Oh, I don't want to make the choice. I'll let John Bolton make the choice. What?
No,
don't do that.
You
make the choice.
No, you're letting the others. Look, on the ballot today, I didn't vote for everything because there are certain things that I didn't know what it was. I was confused by the ballot initiatives. I didn't know what, so I literally did not vote because I didn't know what to do. So I don't know. Is that a morally defective thing to do? Of course not, because I didn't know. So, but the same token, there are people who don't quite know what to do here with these two horrible candidates. So they don't want to make a choice.
And I say they're missing the goddamn story of their lives about Donald Trump.
That's a different point.
That's the point. If nobody's missing the goddamn story of their lives that this frickin' monster is running for president. I'm going to take the last word. If nothing else, thousands, 30,000 North Carolinians disenfranchised. Those are federal Republican judges who were appointed. Stop it! Don't let them do that. Don't let them disenfranchise voters at a bare minimum. I'll grant you a tie on foreign policy, a tie on war. We don't know. Don't let them affect climate. Don't let this monster affect climate change. Don't let him take votes away from people in this country. At a bare minimum, that's enough to go, I hate her, but I'm going to vote for her.
All right, this I will guarantee you, the audience. Tomorrow, we all fight together for systemic change.
Not with these guys.
That's the real answer.
Unless the Clinton Foundation gives us even more money.
Get money out of politics. You'll have much, much better politicians. Then we won't have to have these fights. wolf-pack.com. And we're going to continue right here on youtube.com/TYT. When we come back, a retrospective on this election. So we're going to have the worst of the Donald Trump quotes, the Marco Rubio, the Chris Christies. We're going to have it all for you guys when we